Hey, it's good to see all of you again. Third week in a row here on Club Deportes TV in English. I'm your host, The Smash, Justin Simmons. And of course, we got a lot to get into. A lot of big news happening in the Austin, Texas area. Of course, we're going to get into everything else that's happening in the world of soccer. And of course, also have that little bit that we call the throw-in at the end. But before I get into all of that, I have to give a big shout out to my guest from last week, President and GM of the Central Texas Lobos and the Hornets, David Walding. Big thanks to him. I did make it to that tryout, just in case you all are wondering. No, I didn't make the team, but he was nice enough to send out this really cool jersey, if you get a good look at that. And I did get a chance to speak with the coach, and he is a really great guy, really cool, real chill, and it seems like he has a really good idea of how his team is going to perform this year, but it's going to be a difficult task for them. And, we'll have David back on and hopefully coach us well as they progress throughout their impending season. And I also want to give a shout out to Phil West from the Striker, Texas, the columnist. Thank you for jumping on our show last week as well. So this week, we have some Austin FC recap that we have to get to you. We're going to have some interviews. We'll have some other videos as well regarding Austin FC. We're also going to talk about that Super League thing, how quickly it came and how quickly it went. We'll get to about that later on in the show. And of course, we're going to get to the throw-in. So before I start, let me introduce today's guest. And I'm really excited about this one, you all, because this is a little bit of a reunion show for us in a really roundabout way. But my first guest, I'm going to have both of them join me on this one, is none other than Zach Christodoulides, who is now the news director over at Spectrum News. And of course, my good friend Garrett Green over in Biloxi, Mississippi, the broadcaster for the AA Biloxi Shuckers. Hey guys, it's great to see both of y'all.
Yeah, thanks for having us on tonight. It's good to get back together again.
Yeah, it's been a long time. I figured this is a really nice roundabout way to kind of tie up all the loose ends to the story, if you will. Again, if you know the history between us, Garrett and Zach, it really was your all's idea to get that show when we didn't have a team to begin with. And we figured there was enough people that enjoyed soccer here in the Austin, Texas area. And that part turned out to be correct. And little did you know, we would be sitting here with the team already 2 games in. And now, a game in with the second one coming up, and now we can kind of get into how that team performed for the very first time. So I really wanted to bring both of you all together so we could go over that. And before we get into it, tell me how your game day experience went. I mean, the very first game, it was a really big deal here in the ATX. Zach, where'd you end up? Who'd you run into? Garrett, I want to know, how did you end up with it over in Mississippi? I know it's not exactly a soccer town necessarily, but it's not too far from Memphis.
Yeah, I actually ended up watching the game with a group of supporters called Los Verdes. They're one of the supporters groups here in Austin, Texas. And it was a great time. They had their watch party out at Hop Squad Brewery. It's literally a stone's throw from the stadium. We were able to have a socially distanced party with TVs outside. We had lots of TVs inside as well. Completely socially distanced, pretty safe from what I saw. And it was a great time. I was with members of Los Verdes that I've been with ever since the city council meetings. I know people probably remember that saga of what it took to actually get the team here. And it was an absolutely amazing experience to be able to watch an Austin FC match within viewing distance, if you will, of Q2 Stadium, and doing it with your soccer family, Los Verdes. It was just an absolutely amazing experience.
You know, you talk about the Q2 Stadium, and that just reminded me, that was the big breaking news here today, so I'm a little behind on it. But the Gold Cup coming to Austin, Texas, baby. I can't believe it already that the stadium was just built. We haven't even had an MLS game in there yet, and already a major tournament coming to Austin, Texas this coming summer. I've been to a Gold Cup at FC Dallas. I know that is something that really got some more people interested in the beautiful game, and I can only imagine with the international talent that will be coming to Austin, it's going to be a pretty big deal for everybody.
Yeah, that seems like a massive coup to get in your inaugural season that you have your team playing, to get a high caliber event like this to come to Austin, and an opportunity to see some of not just the best players that you have internationally for these national teams, but really you get to see some of the premier players in the entire world that are playing for their national squad. And they're going to be right there in Austin, and hopefully, like you said, expose some people who might not have otherwise, they heard about MLS and they know that something is happening. But when you bring an international stage to Austin, which we've already seen Austin can handle with everything that happens down at the Circuit of the Americas, so this isn't going to be their first rodeo with hosting an international event. I'm sure that the city is going to put on a great presentation and expose a lot of people to something that I think a lot of people know about, like the European qualifiers, but CONCACAF, which is directly related to how the United States qualifies for the World Cup and gets an opportunity to play on the international stage. Not as many people know about that, and hopefully that exposes some people in Austin to what that whole scenario and that whole tournament is all about.
Exactly. I think you pretty much hit it all right on the nail there, Garrett, because if you look at it in another context as well, the city of Austin, as well as everybody hurting due to COVID, economically speaking. So this is going to drive some much needed tourism back into the ATX as soon as everything is kind of getting under wraps here. Hopefully this summer, we'll kind of get some better idea of how many people will be allotted in the stadium. But, another chance for the city of Austin to shine to a brand new audience that it hasn't got a chance to see before. So I'm really excited. Let me ask you guys this. So very first game in MLS regular season history, and it doesn't go our way, which is to be expected for an expansion team. I'm not one of those fans that was, had my hopes too sky high. I don't know where you guys sit, but a 2-0 victory. Let me ask, how do you feel about that opening performance for ATX FC?
I thought that the result was, I'd say, my expectations were met. I was actually impressed with what Austin FC was able to do. Going into it, I, like you, Justin, was not a fan that thought, okay, we're going to have to win in order for this to be successful. No, LAFC is one of the best teams in the league. Their ability to win their opening matches is not one that is league standard. I did not think that we were going to win. In fact, my impression going into the match was, as long as we lose by less than 3 goals, I was going to be happy. And I'll be honest, when the Vela substitution happened, I was like, okay, wait, maybe we actually have a chance here. And I thought we fought very well through, the opening 60 minutes. We were holding LAFC, and we were able to not only contain the ball, but show creativity. And there's a lot of things that we can work on, and I'm sure we'll get to that a little bit later in the show, but I was impressed with our opening performance.
What about you, Garrett, from what you can see from our opening 2-0 loss at, remind you, a lot of these games are going to be on the road, but at LAFC to open up the season?
Yeah, I think that Zach hit the most important piece of that, which is that, it's one thing to start off your season as a brand new expansion franchise. It is another thing to go up against arguably one of the best, if not the best, prohibitive favorite teams to win the MLS this year. That is just an incredibly daunting challenge. But an entertaining brand of soccer is going to be so paramount to attract fans. And so the creativity that Zach talked about that you saw throughout the course of the match, something that's a little aesthetically pleasing, I think is going to be the most important thing to draw fans in and give them an opportunity. And unfortunately, everybody just has the curve thrown now because of how well the Las Vegas Knights started off when they were an NHL expansion franchise. That is a precedent no one can follow to almost win the Stanley Cup in their inaugural season. But if I'm not mistaken, it's not like how the Knights were able to just go and pluck, guys from various rosters, if I'm not mistaken. It's a little bit different process. So opening up, good impressions early on for Austin FC.
Well, we were able to get a word with head coach Josh Wolf and kind of get his thoughts about how that game progressed. And we're going to go ahead and roll that video here in just a moment, so you guys can also listen on Coach Wolf's thoughts.
I think there was, I've watched the game a number of times, to say the least. Again, I look at different phases of the game. Obviously, when we have the ball, there's a focus on what I'm looking at. And then when we don't have the ball, there's a focus as to what I'm looking for. So I think with the ball, we saw a lot of good connections, good spacing, good speed of passing. I think we can obviously have more presence centrally to have more numbers in between lines. Even though we knew they were a difficult team to break lines as the game opens up, as spaces, as we move them from side to side, there was space centrally. So to have a little more presence between lines to attract them inside to help us get more clarity out wide and give us more options as we did progress in the wide areas to get better balls in front of goal more often. I think we had some of that, but we needed more of that to really unsettle them throughout the game. More runs behind the line, better occupation in the penalty box. So those are some of the things that we'll continue to work on, and certainly different structures to build up. Obviously LAFC was in a 4-3-3, so we'll have to take a look at what the next opponents look like. But there's a lot in that. I think we can have a variety of ways to build up, but I thought we did pretty well with the ball. We were able to move the ball, circulate it really well, created a decent amount of chances. I just want us to create more chances, more clear-cut chances. And then defensively as well, we structure-wise, I think we were okay. Just a little bit more of our pressing cues needs to be a little more clear based on their structure as well. So there's a lot on both sides of the ball that we still need to work on. That's clear. There's not much we'll change up from our training plans for the week based on altitude. We have an altitude chamber that guys have already been utilizing. We have hyperbaric chambers as well to help provide recovery and certainly preparation for the game against Colorado. So we've already had guys working on verticlimbers, the treadmill, the bike. Just from a conditioning standpoint, it obviously helps. But you're right, it is a different element to get into that altitude. The shock to your system initially, and how quickly can you catch your second wind. So we've had some players that have played at altitude, so there will be that familiarity, but it's like anything else. There's a management piece to it within the game, and there's going to be that moment where guys are a little fatigued and suffering, and then you got to power through that, and typically that second wind comes. So we'll just have to monitor that as best we can. There's not a lot of different preparation that we'll make outside of what I've already said, but regardless of altitude, it'll be a challenging game. It's our second game, and Colorado will be a good team playing at their home opener. So the guys were disappointed. They were disappointed to obviously lose. I think they were disappointed we weren't able to grab a goal. We had some decent chances, and it's not to say LAFC shouldn't have scored some goals. I think they had some opportunities. They probably provided more instances where they were going to come with a goal. The fact that the goals came how they did, it's a deflection. So it is a little bit, unfortunate in that standpoint. If it doesn't deflect, I think it's going right to Brad. So, but there were a couple other opportunities that we were probably fortunate not to take one. And the one at the end is just game situation. It's the end of the game. Obviously, it's a little bit of a transition, but the guys were disappointed. So from that standpoint, you feel like they know they put a good amount into the game. We know we pushed and stressed LAFC enough. We created a couple of good chances. The goalie made some very good saves, and with a little more patience and clear ideas in and around the penalty box and better execution, we just felt like we probably could have grabbed a goal. And again, it could have been 1-1 late. We had Johnny had a couple of really good chances. The goalie made a good save. We missed one wide. So there were those opportunities to put yourself right at the end in a place where you're going to take a point. So I think that's where maybe the frustration comes from. As a coach, you appreciate that because they felt like they went into a place like that and had the ability and deserved to come away with something. And to some degrees, I think they're right.
So there you have it. I think a very thorough assessment from Coach Wolff. Well, what do you think about what he had to say? Not all of you go at first now. Garrett, Zach, whichever one wants to handle this question first.
Zach, I'll defer to you, my friend. I was going to say, so anything that you might have, Zach, the floor is completely yours.
Sounds good. I think that the biggest thing that we have to build on this week is got to be the fitness. Now, I'm not sure if Coach Wolff is going to address the fitness in the squad, but I did think that after about the 70th minute going into the second half, you could really tell that the guys were tired. You could tell that we were sluggish. I do think that it's something that we can address. I got to say, I think we're going to have a better showing versus Colorado just because of the skill level of our opponent. But I just don't know how we're going to do at altitude. If we're struggling to keep our fitness levels up in Los Angeles in the spring, what is it going to be like when we're at altitude in Denver this weekend? I'm just not sure, but I do have really high hopes.
Well, that makes complete sense, especially going into the second match. It's still a team that's still trying to figure out how to play with each other, how they all fit within this new system for a first-year head coach. When I'm thinking about a little bit about the performances on Saturday from last week against LAFC, are there any particular performances that stand out to you? Because for me, I think the real deal was our captain in Ring. He really did ball out. I know there wasn't a whole lot to talk about offensively, and I'd love to have your thoughts on the new guys well, I guess they're all new guys, right? But the signees in Pochettino and Redes and Dominguez. But for me, I was really impressed with the way that Ring, Beasler played as well. And I still don't know how I feel about that let's come back after the game and give Romagna that yellow card thing. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Obviously, I don't really agree with it.
The standouts for me, I think I agree with you, Justin. Ring did fantastic. You could tell that his head was in the game. But we're showing highlights right now of our goalkeeper Stuver. To me, he was another player that really stood out. Going into the preseason, it wasn't guaranteed that he was going to be our starting keeper, and he proved himself in not only the preseason matches versus USL squads, but in La Copita as well. I really like Stuver. I think that the mistakes that were made were not necessarily his fault. And I think that, the 2 goals that we had scored against us were, miscommunications with the back line. But it's something that as this team gets more reps and gets more experience playing together, they're going to be able to kind of rectify those situations.
Yeah, you were talking about Stuver. You see him coming up big at least a couple of times, except for here. He was just going to be beat at the end. But some of the players that also really impressed me, Gallagher coming in late, I think he had a good run. We got to see Kolmanic. I was expecting the youngster to get an abundance of playing time, and he came on, put in a decent workload. Pereira, the way that he played, getting the start, I think the young man did a good job, all things considering. And of course, Mane, the hometown kid, essentially getting some run at the very end. So it seems that Coach Wolf is still kind of figuring out who exactly and what exactly his best 11 are going to fit within that puzzle piece that we have in Austin FC right now. My thing, though, going forward is just like, how much does Kolmanic actually get to play over Sweat here pretty soon? And how much do we have depth-wise going up front? Because looking through the numbers, I was able to see some of the statistics as you get to see. At least the crowd reaction was there. You heard it all over Fox throughout that entire broadcast. It was there the day before. It was there the night before. But playing-wise on the pitch, it was the final third that really lacked. I mean, defending was there for the most part throughout the match. The passing, we actually were more accurate than LAFC, but in the final third, when it came to that final phase, it just wasn't there.
I completely agree. And Garrett, I'll let you talk here in a second. But for me, the creativity in the final third was something that also was lacking. We had so many creative through balls that really made it an interesting brand of soccer to watch. But once we got into that final third, the creativity just kind of crept to a halt, and we weren't able to complete passes. We weren't as accurate, and the finishing is something I think that Josh Wolf can also work with his guys during practice. Hopefully he did this past week.
Well, and I think that in football, that's the most challenging part, is finding a way to be clinical in the final third and finding a way to make sure that you generate the right opportunity, but don't waste your chances. Don't have that misconnection. And you have to feel that once these guys have more training time together, they have more in-game action, because the speed of the game is just a little bit different than when you're on the training ground. And they have those opportunities to find where they like the ball. Okay, how do you work for these overlapping runs? When we get in this spot, where am I looking for you? These guys have, it's such a feel inside of the game. You can be clinical, you can have great passing percentages, but to not feel where your teammate's going and know in advance where they're going to be, then it's very difficult to generate offense there in that last third and give yourself clean goal-scoring opportunities.
Yeah, only 3 shots were able to be created by Austin FC, only 1 of them on goal. That's a hard return rate, especially in MLS, when they're usually pretty high-scoring games. I know that wasn't necessarily the case for Colorado as we'll face the Rapids this coming Saturday. How do you feel about the chances of Austin FC coming away with their first W and as well their first goal?
Well, I'm really excited at that opportunity, mostly because I'm hopping on a plane tomorrow evening to fly to Denver. I'm going to get the opportunity to see my first Austin FC match, and I'm really hoping that it's going to be the first goal, the first win. Everything about it is going to be awesome. Like I said, the fitness level flying into Denver playing at altitude is going to be concerning, but I can't remember the exact number of players for Austin FC that were making their MLS debut last weekend. But I think Garrett's 100% right. Getting used to the league, the style of play, the pace of the game too, is something that is only going to get better as Austin gets more experience under its belt. But the other thing that I think is going to be huge is the fact that we still have a designated player slot available. We can determine what exactly we need to make this team a strong candidate going into the postseason and really build on it because we still have that roster slot.
Yeah, I really felt that our offense was going to rely on our wing play from Dominguez and Redes, and we were going to see them and host in kind of more of a central forward, holding forward position and let him lay off those passes. But that didn't seem to be the case necessarily throughout the preseason and didn't seem to be the case on Saturday. So they might be looking at a striker. I know that's what everybody is saying, especially since the depth at striker is now more concerning because they did lose one of the players this past before the first game of the week. But I'm thinking that we will get our first goal. I'm thinking it's going to come from a set piece. Maybe not from the run of play, but hey, a goal is a goal, a win would be a win, and I really do like our chances against the Colorado Rapids. Now, before we wrap up this MLS talk, one of the players that got harped on a lot last season was, I think you've heard of him, Chicharito, and what was it? Maybe 2 goals after signing to LA Galaxy. It was supposed to be a big deal and didn't turn out to be. You'll see the video here. It seems that he kind of got himself back into that old school Man United form that you guys used to remember. How do you feel about Chicharito bouncing back? Is this good for the league? I would assume yes.
I think it's got to be good. I mean, more goals is what MLS wants. It wants an exciting brand of soccer that really, attracts the American soccer fan. That's part of the problem with these big MLS matches that end 0-0 is, for an American soccer fan, that's just not exciting. They don't understand the concept of a draw in sport. So if more goals are being scored, there's got to be a chance to have a definite winner. I think the notification I saw, the push notification from MLS, is that he scored as many goals in game 1 as he did all of last season. So it's got to be exciting, especially if you're an LAFC fan. And I know that there's a lot of casual fans throughout the country that don't really have a team of their own that follow LAFC.
Well, yeah, I'm sorry, Gary, but you do remember that this game was the largest viewed game in the United States, at least English-speaking wise, on Fox. They had the highest view, and that was over Premier League games that happened this week and all the FA Cup games as well. So that was very impressive. But I have a big idea that for Austin FC, anyways, like Chicharito, when they meet, it's going to be an astronomical rating viewer-wise. So it's good to see him on a hot streak, at least for me. What were you going to say, Garrett?
Oh, I was just going to say, from that highlight, it does look like his Manchester United days, because I know he's been accused of poaching goals all the time and just cleaning that one up at the back post.
Because it's true. You saw the second one.
Yeah, Zach's exactly on. Look, there's also a difference between a good 0-0 draw and a bad 0-0 draw. But ideally, if you're an American soccer fan, if you're trying to attract casual fans, you need goals. And to the ratings number that you mentioned there, Justin, I think that we always knew that was the case. We saw in 2014 for the World Cup that Austin, with no MLS team, with no prospects of an MLS team, was one of the top 10 markets in the entire United States for World Cup viewership. So it's very nice, seems like a soft word, but it's encouraging to see that this market that everybody thought was a soccer hub follow that and push through on the ratings. And I can only imagine for the first match at home what that's going to be like as well.
You know, it's kind of funny that you bring it up that way because, yeah, for a long time, there was always people following the sport. Premier League, Bundesliga, going to the minor league games in the USL before the Bowl, back to the Aztecs, and even Aztecs 1.0, and seeing when they were a PDL squad. I mean, there was always a love for the game, and it's really nice to see because Austin's kind of getting rewarded here in a bevy at the end, with the new stadium, with the MLS squad, not even like Ohio squad, but our own squad, an expansion, a true expansion franchise, and getting a chance to host the Gold Cup. And the viewership just keeps on coming in. I think MLS does notice, and the rest of the soccer world is taking notice that, you know, if you're kind to Austin, we're going to help you with those viewing numbers. And obviously our fans like to travel. Zach, did you say you're going to the game in Denver?
I am going to be going to the game in Denver, and when I'm there, I'm going to try my best to get a new chant going. Are you guys ready for this? This is an unofficial chant that I'm going to try and get started. We heard from Josh Wolf earlier in the show. The chant is about him. It goes to the tune of Our House. Are you guys ready for this?
Probably not.
Okay,
it's a world exclusive anyway. Right here on YouTube, baby.
Our coach, better looking than your coach. Our coach.
Están mal sus datos.
That's a great chant. That is a fire chant.
That is fantastic, and it will definitely get a smile on the skipper, I would imagine.
Our producer doesn't seem to agree, but look, I don't push the buttons. I don't push the buttons, all right? But Zach, you have my fullest support just because I'm a fan of the original song. So anything to get a chant with that beat, I am all for it. So I'm hoping that they perform well, get that first victory. You guys going to be watching that game anywhere special? I know, Zach, that there's plenty of parties to choose from here in the ATX. And Garrett, I know in Mississippi, there's not exactly I would imagine, an Austin FC bar just yet, but maybe you might start that?
I might be the one who has to start it. I can see two towering casinos out past my window that probably will have the match on at their sports book. So I might even go down and lay down a wager to see just on the straight money line if Austin FC can get a win. That is legal here. It is perfectly legal for me to go over and do that. So I might. And guys, just to round it out, Zach, first of all, you'll have to answer me in a second whether you packed a coat or you've looked at the weather for this weekend in Denver, because that could also play into the conditions of everything. But as I imagine we're rounding out talks on Austin FC, I certainly haven't been in Austin for a lot of this process to get here, but it is just so remarkable to me to think back, and you guys will remember the Memorial Day flood at House Park for the Austin Aztecs, and to think from there to the Q2 Stadium in less than 5 or 6 years. It is just remarkable and encouraging to see for the city of Austin. And for everyone who's supported soccer locally, I know the stadium's a little bit further north. It's not a downtown stadium, but I hope that those folks who were there from day one are really enjoying the rewards of their efforts. Because to think about a team that didn't have a home and had to go up north to go play in Round Rock after everything that had happened, to then be at this point is just, it's encouraging, and it seems like such a just reward.
Well, the last time that Zach and I saw you was, I think, at your wedding. So you're going to have to drop by at one point and try to get in a game. And I know it's the hottest ticket in town. It's actually cheaper to get a ticket to go to Denver, get a flight, and go watch it live than it is to watch them here. But, you know, that first game in June, I know it's going to be a great atmosphere. Let's move on a little bit in the show, guys. I still have a little bit I want to talk about. And I know a lot of people have been talking about it because when this story broke, it had my attention on Twitter the entire day. But the Super League, everybody threatening to move away from their domestic leagues, they've been talking about it for years. I've mentioned it on the throw-in many times. You see the graphic there with the little question mark. The answer, however, has been no. That was most recent. I think that's a great thing, and that's what I'm. Do you not agree? Did you want the Super League, Mr. Producer? No, they say no. Okay, so that's good, because I know that fans actually made their voices heard, and so far it's not going to happen. And that came from the guy that really started, in Florentino Perez, the president of Real Madrid, who was really one of the masterminds behind this, coming out to say today that the Super League, as we know it right now, is on hiatus. This is something that they want to come back, and you know they're going to come back. And think about But the fans, the way that they abruptly just, I was going to use the S word, but obviously just the way that they just push back instantly. Were you kind of taken surprised by, I guess, kind of the goal for this ownerships from these respective teams to form this Super League? And then were you also impressed with the way that the fans, not just in one country or two countries, but around the world, came together collectively to essentially fight this off?
Yeah, I think the fact that you saw the announcement, the emphatic defending of the Super League, and then within 48 hours, the entire thing had collapsed in on itself. I think it is a massive victory for fans all over the world, and it shows that supporters still have a big say in what happens. It feels like so often that, you know, these big clubs operate outside of what seems to be the rules of everybody else. And so that was the most impressive thing for me, is that fans made their voices heard and they were able to dethrone this thing that, remember, had a $6 billion loan from an American bank to fund this league. They had the cash.
Oh, yeah.
They had the capital. They had a board. They were ready to move ahead. And in 48 hours, that entire thing collapses in and of itself.
Smashed instantaneously, it seemed. And it was crazy because we saw it dissolve in real time. But I want to know, and Zach, maybe you want to take this one first, but as a fan, because we saw the teams that broke away. Now, they say the big six of the Premier League. I don't know how Tottenham and I don't know how Arsenal snuck in there, especially Liverpool, too, if you saw how they're ranked at the table right now. Okay, that's my one zing at them for this show. But you guys are Man United fans, and I'm a huge Manchester City fan, and I know that they got that dirty money. It's fine. I made peace with that a long time ago once they started winning championships. But once they start wanting to walk away and form this separate entity, I did feel a little dirty. It was a little hard to look at my Man City jersey or my t-shirt and my other paraphernalia from Man City and want to keep it. I wasn't going to burn it or anything like that, but I definitely have refrained from putting any Man City gear on my body recently. How about you all?
I think that the biggest thing is that this was such a blatant money grab. We all know that there's money in football. We all know that it's not the cleanest, shall we say, of sports when it comes to how it's funded and the money that goes into it. But for fans, there's one TIFO banner that really stands out to me, and it came about because of COVID-19, but I think that it really solidified how fans felt about the Super League. It said that football is nothing without fans. And when the fans aren't going to back the clubs, you know that you're doing the wrong thing. And I think a lot of clubs picked up on that. It's not something that the fans would have stood for. It would have lessened how they compete in their local leagues. It would have been detrimental, I think, not only to the teams themselves, but to teams throughout their local leagues. The Premier League gets its funding through the scale that it has, and if these big clubs leave and go play somewhere else, it's not as good. And you see that it's because of the I'm going to say a little bit of the laziness of the Big Six that we ran into this problem where, you know, they wanted to get into Champions League, but they weren't necessarily going to put in the effort that it takes to get there. And the amount of work that it takes to actually play in Europa League also has something to do with this as well. And the fact that, you know, a lot of these Big Six clubs were trying to fight to get into the top four to get Champions League. They weren't able to do that some years. And it's just laziness on their part to want to just say, you know what, we're tired of this. We want to qualify every year. We have a God-given right to be in the top, you know, European league, and we're going to break away and try to just start our own. Now, it is the Americanization, I think, of European sports, and that's a whole nother conversation because that, I think, is coming, and I'm not sure how European fans are going to feel about it.
Yeah, they were able to scrape it off this time, but that's one of the big thoughts I've had throughout this whole situation. It's And correct me if my reference is incorrect here, because it's kind of like Star Wars, right? Like the Empire does strike back. The Death Star comes back even more deadly than they originally thought it was. And this is just going to give Florentino Perez and all the other guys that are making these big decisions in those rooms that we're never going to be privy to have more time to strategize a little bit more to figure out how they're going to pull this caper off. It's interesting, though, because I've never seen the fans revolt here in the United States the way that it happened over there, astronomically between each and every country once they found out that news, because each country has a league. The closest thing I probably seen to it was Save the Crew movement from a few years ago. And it's just amazing that you see teams leave NFL teams or Major League Baseball teams move around or NHL teams move, but yet their fans never get to this point of almost a hostility to keep their fans in town. I'm quite surprised, frankly.
Well, we all know that. I mean, especially look, 6 of those teams in the Super League are from England, and English fans are famous for how they feel about their football clubs. So I don't think that there's any denying the passion that's there for those teams. I do know, going back to your point, Justin, you had said, you didn't know how Arsenal stuck in there. There was a quote from earlier today where, if I'm not mistaken, the manager from Arsenal said, or one of the technical directors said, well, a Super League with Arsenal is better than a Super League without Arsenal from their perspective. Now, how much of that is true? Who knows? But certainly it's if you can hop on and be a part of the train, then why not do it? But I think that Zach's right. It is just a blatant disregard for earning your spot, and it's a blatant disregard and just flaunting the fact that you are just attempting to make as lucrative of a deal as you possibly can. Don't get me wrong. The concept of seeing Manchester City play Juventus and Man United play Barcelona and Tottenham getting to play Atletico, like those matches are very entertaining, and the prospect of them is tantalizing. However, what is more fun is when Manchester City is playing Juventus, and they're playing in a Champions League quarterfinal, and it's only the 3rd time that they've met in the last 7 years. That makes it all that more fun, because it doesn't happen every 2 Tuesdays out of a calendar year. It becomes a rare event. It becomes a marquee event to see those teams play each other. And I think that is what makes it so enjoyable. And I know that sometimes in Champions League, look, it's certainly not perfect because of the draw and the way things work. So you lose out on some of those fun, sexy matchups that we want to see. But ultimately, the way to do it is to win. And I know that means you have to divert away from your domestic league, from whatever kind of FA Cup style competition that you might have, for a domestic cup as well. You have to divert resources away. But you have to prioritize what you think matters most to you, and you have to earn your way there. Personally, love the fact that Leeds United, my second team in the Premier League, was one of the teams leading the charge for the way of this.
Yeah, they put on those T-shirts and they put it right in the face of the opposition in Liverpool, and it did rub Jurgen Klopp the wrong way. Any day that you can kind of make him upset, it always makes me a little happier. And Zach, you were talking about the banners. I remember seeing one of those Chelsea fans holding up a banner saying, "We won our cold, rainy night in Stoke." And at least for right now, the fans are going to be able to get it. But again, it's just about how long will they be able to hold this off? Because COVID, the pandemic, financially, I know a lot of those teams make a lot of money, but some of those teams are in deep, deep debt. And the only way to regain it, especially for teams like Barca and for Real, is to get, because they're ran differently. They have to have fans in the stands, and they have to be moving merchandise. And not having game day has really hurt them financially, and they're looking to recoup it any way they can. Now, I will say this, though. This isn't unprecedented, right? The Premier League formed from a breakaway of the British FA. So it's not like the Premier League is doing this out of the righteousness out of their own hearts, or any other domestic league for that matter, nor FIFA, nor UEFA. Remember, this is a business, and they knew that they were going to lose money if this happened. And that's the whole reason that this didn't happen, at least for now. Because you have to have, if you're going to have a Super League, those players are going to be the best in the world, and you can't have them miss out on a European championship. You can't have them miss out on a World Cup. It just would be unfair to the fans.
And how important do you think that was as well, along with the fan uprising, the fact that very quickly and emphatically UEFA and FIFA both came out and said, if you participate in this Super League, you cannot play for your national team. And I have to wonder if, for once, FIFA having a strong response when they needed it might have also been a contributing factor to this.
It was one of those rare responses. And, you know, I think some of the players have said it the best. I mean, if they're going to come out and have all these responses so quickly, knowing that their pocketbook is being threatened, why can't we just end the racism in soccer? I mean, it was a really swoop in, everything happened, changed overnight. The same thing can happen with some more bans, financial bans, Champions League ban games. If you really want to end the problem with racism that is going on between world soccer and its patrons and those teams. Because we've seen a lot of it. The magnifying glass is definitely a lot closer now on situations like this, given the social situation that's all over the world that everybody's dealing with. So the fans were able to get together and stave off this one thing. Now let's all get together and fight another common evil. I think that would be really good for everybody.
Yep.
Yeah, Justin, I couldn't agree more. I think that with the amount of restrictions that these organizations were contemplating putting on these players and these clubs, I feel like they very easily could do the same thing if there's ever an instance of racism that, let's be honest, has been plaguing soccer for too long. And a strong reaction now can try to stamp it out and get it out of the beautiful game. You know, the moments that happen now with, taking a knee and kneeling at the start of every Premier League match, those are great. But the only way that we can really end racism in soccer is by doing these bans. And if we have to be able to stamp it out.
Yeah, you only think it's, again, if we can all band together for this one thing, we should be able to band together for one that's ultimately way more important. We were talking about how these clubs, they're obviously trying to form the Super League in order to get more money, to have more, most importantly, to have more certainty about their product in a very American NFL, NBA style, even MLS way, because there's no promotion relegation from the Super League. According to their rules, there was going to be some that were going to be allowed to join. Obviously, we didn't get that far into the conversation this time around, and we're going to find out, I'm assuming in another 3 or 5 years, that they're going to try this again, especially after at least the next World Cup. I don't think they'll do it before, but definitely afterwards. So to kind of make these clubs happy, so to speak, the big clubs in England and in Spain, Champions League, I don't know if you got a chance to see this, had a bit of a facelift, if you will, had a bit of a change. Don't you just love that sound? Yeah, see, you guys love that sound. That's always a good time for everything, right? So the new look of the Champions League is going to start in 2024, 2025. It's going to go from 32 teams to 36. Now, the biggest change is that the group stage is going to be gone. So no more home and away between those 4 teams anymore. It's going to morph into a 10-game minimum. So you're going to get 5 away games, 5 home games against random opponents. It's going to be a 36-team table now. I'm not sure how clean this is going to go, but the top 8 will automatically qualify for the knockout stages. And then you will have teams, 9 through 24, battle in a 2-leg playoff to qualify for the knockout stages. Now, where the concessions were made, there is going to be 1 spot for a 3rd-place team based on the UEFA 5th-ranked coefficient. So I'm assuming a team like Sevilla is going to get in, or a team like Celtic, one that doesn't always get to qualify for Champions League, but they'll be qualified a little further in instead of those knockout stages that happen prior to when the bulk of the tournament really starts. And then you have 2 highest spots for the highest coefficients over the last 5 years, and that's from any league. So a team like Arsenal that doesn't always get in will have a really good chance if they can finish the year. And I know you guys are not smiling about that because nobody wants to see Arsenal in Champions League. because you got to earn it. But this is kind of a way to give those bigger squads that don't always qualify through their domestic leagues or winning UEFA a chance to qualify for what is arguably the greatest club competition in all the world.
Now, I'm not the greatest maths expert, so I don't really understand the full coefficient thing. But as long as there's transparency in the process, I think that fans are going to be at least open to seeing how this plays out. I do say personally, I'm excited if West Ham can pull it off and clubs like that, at least going into the next season of Champions League. I feel like that's where you get the best Champions League moments, where you have the smaller clubs going against, the David versus Goliath of soccer and getting those wins, getting the results. I'm not sure exactly how I feel about the Champions League reform. I know it's something that needed to be done, and it's something that clubs have been calling for a very long time. But it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Now, no doubt, as long as they're still playing that awesome intro song, we'll all still be happy. Let's be honest.
Garrett, what do you think about this new look Champions League as opposed to the old format?
Well, I think that one of the big issues that I know players have voiced their concern about is the increased number of games that it seems that they're going to have. So now you're lumping more midweek fixtures in there, and essentially squeezing the season, even like squeezing the time they have away from the game even more. I understand that some of the top teams are going to get buys essentially, and advance straight on into the knockout stage. But I think that's an overlooked aspect of it. Strictly as a fan, though, oh yeah, give me more Champions League. Give me more opportunities to maybe see some clubs that put together really good domestic seasons, but, in a season where they're not Manchester City and Liverpool of a few years ago, and so instantly 2 top spots are gone right there, but you still have an incredible season across all levels of your competition. Give them an opportunity to get in and see what they can do, because squads shake up in between year and year, and give an opportunity to ride out and see how they do. I am also the fact that it is going to be jumbled up and you're not just going to play the same 3 teams in your knockout group and you get to bounce around. Maybe that will give us some more of those better matchups that we're looking for and a better opportunity to see those.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is going to be an interesting change. I'm not sure if it's one of these situations where it's not broke, you don't have to fix it. But the one thing that concerns me about this change, are we going to lose those opportunities to see some of those smaller clubs just advance, just because the bigger clubs are going to have this almost buy-in situation where they'll have a seat at the table? I think the days of a team like Porto, as far as they got this year, even as far as a team like Ajax, who has history in this competition, we probably won't see them getting to the knockout stages with any consistency anymore. And I think that will be sad. But again, we have to see how this all plays out. This can change, just as soon as the Super League changed, just the way things are always changing in world football. We only have a few more minutes left on the show, guys, so I want to kick it into our final segment, which is, named after the show, as this is a bit of a reunion for us here. And this is the throw-in segment where I get to talk to you all about everything that I wanted to talk to you about earlier on, as you heard the sound. Throw it! And these are just some of the things I wanted to get to you that we didn't get to in the show. And a question, whoever wants to take this one first, because you guys are both Man United fans, one of the bigger stories that came out before Super League and everything else broke this week was the fact that Tottenham, despite taking the hit money-wise, they sacked Mourinho. The chosen one himself was sacked. And you should see that great picture of him there. Now, he has coached your respectful club, and I say respectfully to Man United.
Put some respect on it, Justin. 3. I have 3 Premier League titles. Put some respect on it.
Están mal sus datos. Yo tengo otros datos.
Yeah, he is a talented manager. You heard me talking about Porto. He took him to the Champions League almost 2 decades ago, it seems at this point. He didn't have a great run with Spurs, a team that advanced all the way to the Champions League final last year and basically brought the bulk of the team back. Is this the end of Jose Mourinho as we know it? A quick answer here.
No. He will land another job, and he will do the same thing he's done with the last couple of teams. When he initially comes on, he will spur them. He'll do what he normally does. But I think he's one of those guys who, after a certain amount of time, his attitude starts to rub guys the wrong way. Look at what Paul Pogba said about having Ole instead of Jose Mourinho. Jose, that's all you need to know, is that it works early on and then it rubs people the wrong way and fizzes out. And I think that, unfortunately for Jose, this is going to be the arc for the rest of his career. Come in, have success, make everybody mad, get sacked.
Están mal sus datos. Yo tengo otros datos.
Yeah, he's going to walk in, burn everything down, and leave. But he'll win a championship for you. The thing is, they're saying that he might go to Celtic in Scotland. He'll have to take on, what, Frank Lampard over there?
Yeah.
Or who's the one? Is it Stevie G? Who's leading Rangers right now? Stevie G, right? Nobody knows? Okay. Hey, Zach, what do you think about
Lampard
Mourinho's
just got
run?
sacked from Chelsea not that long ago.
Okay.
So.
Then it's Lampard. But, Zach, what do you think about Mourinho getting sacked? Do you think he's going to end up on his feet somewhere cool, or you think he's going to take like a desk job for a little while?
I'm not exactly sure where he's going to end up, but I do want to piggyback on Garrett's point, where you saw in Manchester United how the players were elevated after he was fired. And
sorry, I keep on laughing at that
I think
photo.
that tells you all you need to know. Now, you know what? Actually, I do know where he's going to end up. He's probably going to end up eventually in Major League Soccer, where someone will steal my amazing chant, and they'll tweak it a little bit. It'll be our coach, better dressed than your coach, our coach.
You're really going to try to make that chant work. I hope you do.
The chant is going to work. It's going to happen.
I'm
I'll be
assuming
listening on the Fox Sports. I'll be listening on the Fox Sports feed to make sure that we hear that. I'll turn the volume all the way up and listen for it.
I know that Denver has many fine breweries, and there's going to be an abundance of brews and other substances available in Denver. So by that time that the midway point hits in that game, I think if you start that chant, you'll get other people on board with you. But I think that would be a great pickup for MLS. If Mourinho does come over, he can go to Inter and bring his style of football to MLS and see no goals scored, which might bode well. All right, so you know how we used to talk about kits all the time? Well, since the Euros were delayed, now they're coming this summer, and Puma has 4 teams, and this is a good look at their kits. What do you think about these? They look like training tops to me, but this is what they're going to wear on the actual pitch.
I have no clue what team that is.
Right?
How can you? I mean, on the left.
Let me point it out to you. On the left is
It looks like
Italy.
Italy.
On the top, it is Austria in the black. On the far right is the Czech Republic. And then on the bottom below Austria is Switzerland.
I would say I can see it's Switzerland now.
Right? But it doesn't. Are you not impressed with these kits? Because I know, we have a different taste of fashion, but I mean, I think we're all in agreement. This is going to be worn at the European Championship. You thought that Puma would have brought their A game on these away kits.
I think that what happened here was there was a designer from Adidas that's done the MLS kits the last few years, where it's basically just been a white T-shirt. And Puma's, what they've done is they've hired that designer and given us that, which is garbage, if you ask me.
Yeah, I'm totally with you, man.
What happens when they play each other? And it's indiscernible. I know they'll wear different colors, but my God, like the crest has to be a certain size, right? Is that not standard for you to have?
I have no
an
clue.
emblem. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, over the game's history, crest size doesn't necessarily have, at least from what I've seen, like a jurisdiction of how big or how small it has to be or where it needs to be placed necessarily.
Size matters.
Depending on the competition. But we'll see if those are going to make it to the Euro 2021. I think they are going to make it. It seems, I mean, Italy seemed to be very happy with the release, as those were just released earlier today. I'm not sure we have the picture for this. But I do want to ask you, Garrett, did you get a chance? And what are the Shuckers doing this year? Because the team from Corpus Christi had a great idea as they combined, a lot of Texas favorites all together with that Whataburger jersey that they created. Mm-hmm. And you saw that orange and that white that came together with it. And it looks awesome. And of course, I love the honey butter chicken biscuit. So I'm very excited about those jerseys. I know I don't have the photo for you, but what do you think, at least as a minor league idea, Garrett? how those jerseys are going to work for them.
Oh, first of all, nothing I love more than an HBCB. All right. Nothing more that I love. And by the way, guys, I'm very lucky. I actually had Whataburger for lunch today. We have two of them here in Mississippi. I've got one that's 10 minutes away from the ballpark, just on the other side of the Back Bay. It's fantastic. I cannot tell you how great it is to have Whataburger here in Mississippi. No, I know people over at the Corpus Christi Hooks. If you've seen their ballpark, it's Whataburger Field. They repainted the top, so the overhang is painted like a Whataburger with the orange and white stripes. Yeah. This goes right along with a team's branding for alternate identities. One of my favorites is one of our affiliates in the Brewers up in Wisconsin. They become the Udder Tuggers, and they just have a cow as their mascot. There are all kinds of different food related. I know Staten Island a few years ago, they became the Pizza Rats for a night. So minor league baseball is full of them, but I love the fact that they went jerseys and honey butter chicken biscuits. The only rule is the night that you play as the HBCBs, don't tell me I have to wait till 11 o'clock to have my honey butter chicken biscuit. Like, you better be serving them in the ballpark that night. That's all I know about that.
That would be ideal, but we have to petition. We can come together as a group. We are stronger together as a voice, and tell Whataburger that we want the honey butter chicken biscuit before 11 a.m. In fact, it should be served at all times. But I know that's a lot of stress on their crew and stuff, but maybe they can make it happen with all that new ownership money that they have. Garrett, we don't have a whole lot of time, and Zach, so just two questions really quick. And this one predominantly for Garrett, and then the last one for all of us. Okay, Garrett, in like 60 seconds or less, tell me.
Welcome to Adapted Mom.
Tell me why baseball is so good this season and why it's all about Shohei Ohtani.
Because Shohei Ohtani hits the ball harder than most major leaguers and throws it harder than most. He is a modern day Babe Ruth. It is unbelievable. So enjoy it. The other thing about baseball, there is so much great, historically great young talent in the game right now, and they play a fun brand of baseball. Plus, the ball's still flying out of the yard right now. So tune in and watch a couple of games. You're going to see something that you probably have never seen before.
Wow, you fit that all in within 60 seconds. I thought you were going to go on this long run about Trout still there, and you were going to go on the long rant about how good Slam Diego has been. So yeah, I catch a little bit of baseball every now and then. I try to read up for you. Okay,
Don't
guys.
come at me when you have a game that can end in a 0-0 score, okay? That's all I'll say. I love soccer, but when you want to criticize me on baseball, don't come at me when your game can end with no score and a tie.
Zach, you want to take this one before I tell him? Because I've done a lot of baseball games in my life, Garrett Green, and I've had to sit through like double baseball games, like 18 innings worth. Let me tell you, I'll take a 0-0 draw in 90 minutes or 120 minutes, whatever, over an 18-inning ball game any day.
Yeah, that 90-minute time frame will do it.
All right, guys. So one final question here. It is Oscar weekend, as you know. Everybody's going to be tuning into the big show. Here you see it right here. Best Picture. I'm putting you guys on the spot. You got 8 to choose from. The Father, Judas and the Black Messiah, Mank, Minari, Nomadland, Pretty Young Woman, Sound of Metal, and The Trial of the Chicago 6. Those are your nominees for Best Picture this year. I'm not sure if you had a chance to watch any of these films, but off the top of your head, who's taking home the Oscar for Best Picture this year?
I'm going to go with the one that I've actually seen, and that's Sound of Metal.
Oh, yeah?
That was a great film.
Now, it's about the drummer, right? He's losing his hearing, but this is how he makes his living. So it's kind of like, you know, to be the talented, or it's kind of like that Twilight Zone where the guy gets to read all the books, all he wants, but then he breaks his glasses. You know, obviously more severe in this case.
And I don't want to have any spoilers, but it's also about, you know, your ability to find happiness. That's what I'll say about the film, and I took a lot when I watched it.
But putting on your best movie critic hat here, you would give it the 2 thumbs up?
I would give it the thumb and a half up.
Okay.
Is that a movie critic thing? Yeah, thumb and a half up.
Oh, I thought you were giving us the LV sign, the Los Verdes sign.
Yeah, we can do. Wait, hold on. LV, there it is.
Oh, we love Los Verdes.
There's a mirror going on. I don't know.
It's a mirror system. It's difficult to do. It's okay, man.
I'll make this easy so we can wrap up. I've seen this many of those films. That would be 0. So I'm not going to offer any opinion. I had no idea we were even doing the Oscars this year. So enjoy.
Well, just to finish it up real quick, because we're pretty much out of time, I am thinking is going to go to Mank. Hollywood loves to write stories about themselves, and this is a story about old school Hollywood. So I think it's going to take home Best Picture. Guys, we are out of time. Hey, I want to thank you again so much for joining us here tonight. Garrett Green, we'll be listening to you as the season progresses. Zach Christodoulides, I promise one of these mornings I will get up early to watch you do your thing and direct the news.
Thank you, man. Thanks for the producers for spelling my last name right on the little box there. That's a touching tribute.
Hey, you guys are all champions in my book. You know that.
Well, thanks, buddy.
All right, we'll see you guys later. And for all of you that are watching at home, thank you again for tuning in right here on Club Deportes TV en Inglés. We will have another episode for you coming up in a few days. So until then, take care, relax, enjoy that Austin FC soccer. Hopefully they get the win this week. Enjoy whatever else that you're going to be watching, maybe even the Oscars. We'll see you later.